Welcome to our presentation of our full research paper, Do you think it's biased? How to ask for the perception of media bias. It is a collaboration between computer scientists and psychologists, and you will just find out why. So our main objective was to find out how we can ask users of any kind for any type of study how they perceive media bias. Because, or maybe before that, first of all, what is media bias? So as media bias, we generally describe something as being one-sided or polarizing. Like in this example, welcome to Germany, refugees will arrive in Munich versus Islam invades Germany. So you can see how both headlines convey about the same content but are very different. And the nice illustration is also shown on the left with a picture selection that can just be very different. The status quo is that there is lots of research about media bias from all different directions: social science, linguistics, psychology, computer science, but actually many of them they did not reflect the questions they used to evaluate whatever came out of the survey, independent of the type of survey, but in general, the questions that were asked were not tested extensively. And this is the gap that we want to close with this research work. So in general, there's a lack of research about the reliability of the results of any studies. So our main contributions are that we will develop a reliable scale to evaluate articles in terms of the perception of media bias. And what we did was we extensively searched for literature about media bias and collected all questions that we could possibly find that would describe that asked for anything related to media bias. Overall, we came up with 824 questions, and we then summarized them multi-iteratively. So we tried to semantically reduce the questions to the core of the question, and then we tried to combine all the possible questions into a next layer of questions, into a next layer of questions, and a third layer of questions, so that ultimately we would come up with the core essence of the questions that were used. And these were 48 questions. The scale in general aims to improve the data collection of media bias. And with these 48 questions, we then tested them. And we performed the factor analysis, which I will talk about right after. So in general, just before that, of course, related work, as mentioned, exists from many different angles: computer science, psychology, linguistics, social science, and there are also professional platforms that present media bias ratings. For example, there's All Sites and Ad Fontes, who both create individual labels for articles, or All Sites creates outlet-specific political classifications of for their articles, and Ad Fontes individual article level classifications, and Ground News combines both of them. So there are many different ways where media bias is depicted, and in general, media bias is a very complex and interdisciplinary construct. Again, 48 items were chosen in the end. From 824, we went to 419 that we categorized in different classes. And then the reduction process that I described before took place, which left us with 141 items. And then there was a last final selection of items, because some of the items, even though we didn't combine them into one, were quite similar. And we wanted to cover questions about every aspect of media bias to first explore this field. We then pursued or performed a survey with 940 participants. We will show the detailed statistics about the participants in the paper. The link will be in the end of this work and this presentation, but the statistics are all there. And we also tried to have a balanced and most recent article selection, so that the articles would actually cover all of the possible topics that are going on, more recent topics, less recent topics, more general topics, less general topics, more polarizing topics and less polarizing topics. So we sort of created some sort of matrix when we selected the articles. We then, as said, we performed a factor analysis. For the details about the analysis and the method, I would also like to refer to the paper. Link will come right after. But generally, we found 5 major classes of questions or groups. There was a direct influence of the article questions, questions about topic affirmation, negative emotions, direct questions about bias, so explicitly asking for bias, and questions about political ideology. And there were a lot of questions, which is why for the discussion that comes right after, in the paper and on a separate page, there's a very long list of the final set of questions that came out of the factors and everything else. So for the set of questions, I would like to refer to the paper, and you can see a very long table with all the questions individually right there. It is a lot of items, so I am happy for any of your questions. Thank you.